Hello, I'm Christina Foster, and I'm excited to introduce to you the newly released Facilitating Effective Community System Development Meetings, a handbook for collaboration leaders. I, along with Renee Tetrick, are the co-authors of this handbook. Both of us are facilitators and have been working in this field for a very long time. Before I go any further, I'd like to also acknowledge the local collaboration leaders and Illinois Action for Children staff who provided input and feedback on this handbook. Please see page 2 of the handbook to see who contributed. I hope this introductory video will help you become familiar with the handbook, understand the ways it can help you develop your facilitation competence and confidence, be enticed to check it out, and to know more about additional supports for developing your facilitation competency through Illinois Action for Children. I'll start by sharing a little bit about why this handbook was developed and then share its purpose. Every year, the CS3 team sends out a survey to Illinois early childhood collaboration leaders to learn what supports they need to advance their community system development efforts. Year after year, requests for facilitation support are always mentioned. So the team decided that a facilitation handbook, specifically for community system development leaders, could be a way to help more people address this need. The intention from the start has been to not only develop collaboration leaders' facilitation competency, but also to help them have more effective meetings that lead to significant early childhood system improvements. So the purpose of the handbook is to strengthen collaboration leaders' meeting planning and facilitation competence so they can deepen collaborative member engagement, center equity and CSD conversations at meetings, get to inclusive and sustainable collaborative decisions, and to support collaborative member action between meetings. This is what matters in CSD meeting facilitation, so we kept this in mind as we made decisions about what to include in the handbook. If you are new to community systems development work, please see the introduction for our definition of community systems development. There you will also find our definitions for family engagement and racial equity, along with a description of how they are central to community systems development work. This video is organized around questions we hope will help you see the ways in which this handbook may be helpful to you. Questions that will be addressed include, what is unique about this handbook? In what ways is this handbook specific to community systems development? How can this handbook help you facilitate equity-focused conversations? Who and how can collaboration leaders benefit from using this handbook? And what are other ways Illinois Action for Children can help you strengthen your facilitation skills? All right, let's get started. What is unique about this handbook? The contents of this handbook are unique in a few ways. First, it provides comprehensive facilitation content from basic to more complex topics and skills. It's written specifically for facilitation of CSD conversations and meetings, and it includes how to facilitate equity-focused conversations, both those that are planned ahead of time and those that emerge in conversations. It also includes more than 65 facilitation techniques, methods, and tools that you can use during your meetings. Let's take a closer look at the chapters in this handbook. There are 10 chapters and 2 appendices. Chapter 1 introduces core facilitation concepts that will be referenced in later chapters. These concepts apply to meeting planning and facilitation. In Chapter 2, we make the case for centering equity in facilitation and emphasize the inner work and preparation that is critical to our development as a CSD facilitator. Chapter 3 focuses on 5 facilitation skill sets, each of which includes many concrete skills. The table format in this chapter makes it easy to understand what the skill is, when to use it, how to do it. Chapter 4 is a big one. It describes 8 core facilitator tasks and provides example techniques to accomplish them. Chapter 5 focuses on supporting productive group dynamics, recognizing and intervening disruptive behaviors, and dealing with interpersonal conflict during meetings. Chapter 6 provides instruction for supporting 2 types of small group conversations, That is open conversations where the facilitator helps the group do their best thinking with a light touch, and a planned conversation where the facilitator takes on a greater role to help the group get to a specific outcome. In Chapter 7, the topic is about understanding, preparing for, and facilitating equity-focused conversations. We also provide suggestions for how to hold space for yourself and others throughout the conversation. In Chapter 8, we turn to planning collaboration meetings. It starts with design considerations related to the 5 facilitation focuses, that is people, content, process, group dynamics, and equity. Then we give step-by-step instructions for determining agenda topics and developing a facilitation plan for the major ones. It ends with suggestions for preparing for the meeting. Chapter 9 is about facilitating collaboration meetings with an emphasis on how to embed equity in your facilitation, how to support inclusive and sustainable decision-making, and how to use action learning during meetings for problem solving. Chapter 10 emphasizes the importance of supporting member action between meetings and continuously improving your facilitation. Appendix A provides a more detailed summary of each of these chapters. Appendix B is a facilitation list of methods, techniques, and tools. This is an alphabetical listing of all the facilitation methods, techniques, and tools found throughout the handbook. Each technique is categorized by thinking zones, which helps us know when to use it. You'll learn a lot about these thinking zones throughout the handbook, starting in Chapter 1. The table also indicates where we reference each method or technique in the handbook, so you can go check those out. We hope you will find that aspects of the handbook design are also unique and, more importantly, make it very practical and easy to use. First, as I already noted, the content is sequenced and scaffolded from basic concepts and simple skills to more advanced techniques and topics. The scaffold nature of the design means we build upon concepts or skills throughout the handbook. Whenever we reference a skill or concept that was previously mentioned, we'll tell you exactly where you can find it. To make the handbook easy to use and serve as a quick reference, instructional information is shared using graphics in the forms of tables, illustrations, callouts, checklists, and more. I'll share a few examples in the next slide. Finally, we have provided extensive citations so you can go to the original sources if that source wasn't us. Additionally, in some cases, we suggest other resources that you may want to check out. Here are some examples of the graphics that have been created to make it easy to understand and quickly reference essential information that is included in the handbook. And I'll be sharing some more throughout this video. Let's move on to our next question. How is this handbook specific to community systems development? First, all the content we included in this handbook is relevant to community systems development meetings. While some chapters are more universal in their application, for example, the essential facilitation skills, throughout the handbook, we share the relevance of the contents to facilitating community system development conversations and meetings. As I already noted, you can find our definition of community systems development in the handbook introduction. Here, I will call out some examples of specific content that is particularly tailored to community collaboration leaders who facilitate CSD meetings. In Chapter 1, for example, we acknowledge that many of you wear multiple hats as a collaboration leader. This can make it more challenging to be a neutral facilitator. Not only do we recognize this, we give you tips for how to navigate it. Also in Chapter 1, we share the relevance and application of conceptual models so you know how it relates to CSD efforts. Here is an example of the relevance and application of Tamarec's collaboration spectrum. Collaboration, as you know, happens on a continuum from loose organization and greater turf issues to more tightly organized efforts built upon greater levels of trust. This is important to consider as you design and facilitate meetings because where a collaboration is on the spectrum influences their ability to move to individual and collective action. In Chapter 5, we address group dynamics. We first situate it within a foundation of effective collaboration. Not all meetings require high levels of collaboration like CSD meetings do. So we start this chapter by emphasizing some of the basic facilitation strategies that promote collaboration. Of course, this topic could be the focus of an entire handbook. Needless to say, it's important to acknowledge this, even if we can't provide all those details in the scope of this handbook. Where the handbook is especially relevant to CSD meeting facilitation is in chapters 8 through 10, where we dig into the details of planning and facilitating CSD meetings and then supporting action between meetings. In chapter 8, we go deeper into the 5 facilitation focuses, for example, people, by describing the role of people in CSD efforts and sharing considerations for designing with people in mind. We do this for each of the focuses. Throughout this chapter, we provide guidance for designing specifically for CSD meetings. In chapter 9, we focus on facilitating collaboration meetings. All the previous chapters have laid the groundwork for facilitating effective CSD meetings, so that in this chapter, we can focus on centering equity in our facilitation, supporting inclusive and sustainable decision-making, and engaging in action learning to support problem solving during meetings. While chapter 10 is not about facilitating meetings, it is about facilitating action that arises from CSD meetings. This chapter will help you better support collaboration members in carrying out the actions that are needed to create transformative systems change in your community. Next is, how can this handbook help you facilitate equity-focused conversations? A focus on equity is woven throughout the handbook. In fact, we added equity as a 5th facilitation focus alongside people, process, content, and group dynamics. We did this because equity is central to creating transformative systems change. Our definition of racial equity and a description of how it relates to community systems development efforts can be found in the introduction. Let's take a moment now to look at how equity focus is woven throughout the rest of the handbook. In chapter 2, we acknowledge that for real change to happen in community systems development work, we need to bring a focus on equity in our facilitation. Here we define what it means to center equity in our work, provide support for the inner work of centering equity, and describe how facilitation can be a tool for centering equity. In chapter 4, Facilitation Core Tasks and Techniques, we explicitly call out centering equity and inclusion as a core facilitation task and give 8 techniques for doing it. While chapter 5 on supporting group dynamics is more universal in its application, it does lay a foundation for recognizing and supporting productive meeting behaviors, intervening disruptive behaviors, and dealing with interpersonal conflict. Understanding, preparing for, and facilitating equity-focused conversations is the focus of chapter 7. This includes things like using a conversation guide to support your facilitation, setting expectations with the group, creating accountable space, using the 4 agreements of courageous conversations, and more. We also describe what it means to hold space for these conversations, how to stay present with discomfort, respond to emotions, and provide support when harm happens. Chapter 8 is all about planning for CSD meetings. We specifically describe how an equity focus is central and give considerations for what that means in meeting design. We also have a section on preparing to center equity, both for planned conversation as well as equity topics that surface during meetings. In chapter 9, Facilitating Collaboration Meetings, we provide direction on 4 different techniques you can use to center equity. These 4 techniques are using an equity framework, taking equity pauses, making decisions with equity choice points, and using equity impact assessment questions. Before we wrap up, I'd like to share a little bit more about who and how collaboration leaders can benefit from using this handbook. While this handbook was designed with the beginning facilitator in mind, collaboration leaders who review the handbook indicated the handbook design and contents can be helpful to facilitators at any level of experience. For people who have less experience or training, Consider starting at the beginning and working your way through the handbook. This will help you build a solid foundation. And of course, at any time, you can reference other sections that are relevant or needed. For people with more facilitation experience or training, you may want to check out the table of contents in more detail to see where you may have some gaps in your facilitation competence. Of course, everyone may benefit from referencing Appendix B when you're looking for facilitation methods, techniques, or tools. And this brings me to our last question. What are other ways Illinois Action for Children can help you strengthen your facilitation skills? Illinois Action for Children provides a wide range of supports for collaborations, and I'd like to emphasize two today. The first is the Partner Plan Collaboration Institute. During this year-long coaching support, you can choose to focus on developing your facilitation competency. You can do the same with an on-demand consultation. The difference here is this is a shorter duration support that can also be tailored to your specific desires for developing your facilitation competence. Check out the website to learn more about these two options. Finally, we will be providing 2 days of training on topics covered in the handbook next March. Please complete the survey using the link below to tell us what you'd like the focus of that training to be. The survey will only be posted for a limited time, so check out the handbook and let us know your preferences. We look forward to hearing from you and hope that this handbook will serve you well. Thank you.